Everyone has a story. Stories have power. They help us understand each other. This is Jessop's Journal. Engles, great to see you. Let's go chat.
All right.
Engles, it's time to sign into Jessop's Journal. Hi, this is Doug Jessop. Welcome to this episode of Jessop's Journal. With me today is Engles Tejeda. Did I say that right?
That's correct.
All right, okay. I understand that you are from, what, is it the Dominican Republic?
Dominican Republic, that's right.
Okay, so don't say train, plane, or automobile, but how do you get from, the Dominican Republic to the United States and specifically to Utah?
Yeah, so my dad was an undocumented immigrant in the 80s, and Reagan gave him amnesty. President Reagan passed an amnesty bill, or had signed an amnesty bill. And in 1990s, the amnesty bill put him through on a path to citizenship. So by the 90s, he was able to attain citizenship, which meant he could bring me over.
Okay.
And Dad joined the Mormon Church, I want to say 1991, 92, and then came to Utah via the church.
So how old were you then?
I was 13 when I came to the U.S. In 95.
Okay, just because I don't understand, all the immigration law stuff, but
Sure.
So were you automatically a citizen, or how did that work?
Yeah, so the process is that if you're underage, and meaning under 18, and one of your parents is a U.S. citizen, then the process is really more of a paperwork than anything else. It's administrative, and then you're awarded citizenship. So I became a citizen at around 14.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So who else came with you? So it was your dad,
Yeah.
and then you came.
Yes.
Anybody else come with you?
Yes, my grandmother joined us about a year later, so in 1996 or so. And then the two of us were pretty much roommates
Yeah, there you go.
for about a year or two until I moved out of the house and she moved back east and remained close since. But
So where'd you end up going to school as a kid?
Initially I spoke no English, and I started at an ESL program at a school called Hillside that is just east of 13th. And then about 3 months into that, went full-time English at East High School. And the school was all English, I wasn't still. So spent quite a bit of time still, working off a dictionary and that sort of thing. But
So what kind of adjustment did you have from, because I don't have any idea what the Dominican Republic is like. So you go to Dominican Republic, then you go here, and then you go to East High.
Yes.
Okay. So do you remember your first day at East High?
Absolutely, and I should preface with this with kind of what my expectations were.
Okay.
So we had access to American media, right? So I mean, it's global, and my perception of what high school would be, and one of the reasons that I really wanted to come to the U.S. was because of this. I imagined the high school would be like Saved by the Bell.
Okay.
It was, the idea was that this was a very social environment, and that unfortunately the character that I probably most resembled was Screech, which not necessarily the most fun part, but certainly an experience that I thought was awesome. In Dominican Republic, baseball is religion.
Oh yeah.
I'm horrible at baseball, so I feel like they kicked me off the island as soon. I had to find another place, and so I thought the U.S. would be it. So I was really looking forward to this experience. My first day of high school, though, was very different than what I expected. And what happened is that it was 1995, and on my first day, the students walk out. And they line up on both sides of 13th East.
Whoa.
And they're yelling at each other. And of course, at this point, I'm thinking, I'm sort of familiar with this. This is, in Dominican Republic, the students walk out and line up when they're about to start riots and protests, and they often turn violent. So I kind of stay back in my room, in my classroom, and kind of to seek shelter. the students were arguing over the gay-straight alliance, which at the time was a breakthrough proposition, and you know, it was, I think, the start of a much larger movement we've seen evolve since then. But what happened out of this is that because I sheltered in place, I was in Mrs. Emery's class, who was a math teacher then, Rosemary Emery, and who became a lifelong mentor, and you know, I think someone who truly changed much of the course of my life.
Well, you know, it does seem like there are those seminal moments, and those people in your life.
Yep.
For me, it was Mama Hughes. Okay,
Yeah.
Mama Hughes. Okay, she was a literature teacher,
Gotcha.
you know, back in California. But so, what kind of impact did this woman have on your life?
Yeah, I can't overstate this. So, the relationship started with this kind of moment, you know, impromptu moment, and to your point, it really was for me. I think the relationship that I developed with Mrs. Emery. Sort of what set me into where we are today. And here's what happened. Bring a teenager from a different country to a whole different environment. And I am, you know, placed with a father figure whom I hadn't had seen since I was a child. And naturally, there's going to be friction developing, right? So we started having problems at home pretty soon. And in the absence of other close family members around, Mrs. Emery very much stepped into that role, in a way that was, I think, in a way that only teachers really know how to do this, which is how to manage teenagers carefully, delicately, but effectively. And so I remember that I would come in and stay after hours in her classroom, after school, and she would stay after class, just walking through homework with me. But really, it was a moment for me to bounce off ideas of her. Should I drop out and just go back to Dominican Republic? Should I go to work? And her, kind of sounding back, saying, "Oh, that's silly. You're doing so well. Why don't you do this homework and bring it back tomorrow?" So that I had something to follow up on, and I wouldn't just fall off. And what happened is that one assignment at the time, I got through from pre-algebra to AP calculus, which is our, the highest math class we had. I wasn't particularly great at math, so this was a skill that took working. But along the way, she got me interested in AP biology, in AP chemistry, AP US history, which I, truly loved, and it just got me to a place that I don't think I could have gotten otherwise, and I think it changed my life. Towards the end of my time there, I joined the U.S. Army, and this was a conversation we had, and I said, well, what about, I'm basically living alone now, and what if I join the U.S. Army? She says, all right, go ahead and try it. And I remember going off to training, coming back, and thinking, okay, I'm definitely going to college, and having few examples of professionals in my life then, I thought I wanted to be a doctor because I had been to a doctor. I knew what they did.
Yeah, you might have even seen one on TV.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, you hadn't seen them on TV. You had seen them in person. And so I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to be a doctor. I had a fantastic AP biology class there too, and I thought, this is the way to go. And I'm driving down, and on the radio comes on this commercial for a for-profit school that promised to use your military aid to get you certified as a medical assistant, and that this is going to put you in the career, in the medical career field. And I thought, kind of out of the blue, I thought, I should stop by Mrs. Emery's class, and there was a bit of hesitancy there because you didn't want to be a super senior, right? But I stopped by. She happened to be on her off class period, and I said, Rose, this is what I want to do. I'm going to go to medical school, and I'm going to go sign up for this class. And she says, Engels, that's not how you get to med school. So she says, look, what you want to do is just drive down to Westminster College, and sign up and tell them that, you know, you want to start school next semester. They have this open enrollment thing. You know, and I said, sure, you know, you've been right about most everything else. Mm-hmm. So she wrote a recommendation letter for me on the spot. I drive down to Westminster, and again, it's this just one of these moments that change everything. Because what they were able to do was to put me immediately into a program. They you know, itemized for me on one single piece of paper all the, you know, how I was going to pay for things, where I was going to live, what kind of classes I needed to take. And so for the next 2.5 years, you know, I had a military deployment in between, but that's where I, you know, that was home. And,
had anybody gone to college in your family before?
No, my dad started at BYU, but dropped out.
Okay.
Back in the Dominican Republic, we have one professional in the family who, you know, it's basically the bank for the family, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
I mean, it has been for most of my life when I was there. And that was it. We had, you know, two professionals, one professional and one who had tried. But here in the U.S. we didn't. And I was the first, and, you know, we changed that now. We're getting more people who are going to school, and slowly but surely we're getting there.
So what did your grandmother think about, you know, you going off to college?
My grandma, and I think all of these women, led by my mom really, they, from a very early age, had this firm belief that I could do anything. And I don't know where this came from, because I think, you know, I was the first of the children and of the grandchildren on both sides, from my dad and my mom. And there was this sense that, you know, I wasn't great at sports, but I was meant to do something else. But I was meant to do something. Mm-hmm. I think my family expected me to do something academically. So when I said that I was going to college, they thought, yes, that sounds right.
Did your grandmother work outside the home?
My grandmother had two jobs, one cleaning, well, in the days she was working at the DI, and she was 8 to 5, selling clothes and organizing things. Dad was working at a warehouse during that time too. And then in the evenings they would come home, they would take a 45-minute break, and then they would head back downtown to Salt Lake, and they would clean offices at these big businesses. And that, you know, and then she would come home at around 10 p.m. and at 10 to 11 or so, and, you know, I would be up tinkering with homework and my stepmom helping me out. And then we would, you know, talk a bit about her day. And like I said, we were roommates, and so she would tell me about, you know, this is what happened at the store this morning. But mostly the conversations were really about these buildings she was cleaning, because they were the most intriguing. She would say, you know, these elevators are, you go take this elevator so many floors up, and you have to clean all these wood panels, and you have to be very careful not to leave fingerprints on them. The kitchens were always a topic of interest, because at these offices they had these fountain drinks that were available for people, and Grandma was always commenting on how she had to get rid of food from the fridge, and what hurt her most, aside from having to throw away this food, was throwing away the Tupperware, and that she couldn't simply wash them and either give them back or bring them home, right? Because we could use it.
Yeah.
And you know, this is just the kind of thing
Sure.
that a grandmother would find most interesting. But I remember having these conversations, and as a teenager being mildly interested, you know, and mostly just feeling obliged to entertain it, because she didn't really have much of a community, you know, outside of that. And so for a year, we did that.
Do you remember what kind of business it was that she was cleaning there?
Yeah, so what I came to learn is that it was law offices. Oh. And to me, you know, this is what I call an only in America story, because within the course of one generation, I ended up as a partner at one of those firms. And I wished that I could tell you that it was intentional. It wasn't. We can talk a little about this, but it just, things happened one after the other. I discovered that I had a talent for corporate law, particularly corporate litigation. You know, post-college at the University of Utah's law school. And Grandma moved back to New York, gosh, it would have been in 96 or so, 97. And about 2 years ago, I had an engagement at Westminster, and I had to bring her in. And so, I invited her and said, look, I'm going to be giving the commencement speech, and I'd love for you to be here. And she wasn't here for my graduation speech, and she said, sure. And we came. Doug, this is going to be a moment that I hope I messed up for your views, but we come back, and I'm driving her around, and I take her over to where our offices are. And she looks out the window and she says, hey, that's the building. That's the building I used to clean. It's the building across the street where the other firms are located. And I know all these people because they're my peers. I know these offices because I've been there, whether it's doing depositions or mediations or whatnot. And all those memories came back, and it was probably, I would say, one of my proudest moments professionally was, and personally really, was having my grandma sit at my desk. And her comment to me was, this feels like a whole different world. And it is. In many ways it is. It shouldn't be, but it is. It was an amazing moment. And I can't believe you just got me to tell you all of that when I am here to talk to you about many other things. But yeah, it was a great moment for me. It was surreal.
Well, there was one other thing we had talked about a little earlier.
Yeah.
That when you went, went to Westminster, and then you decided to do the law school thing, and then you opened up a letter.
Wow, you're really going through all of this. So I went to law school. I went to the University of Utah, to the S.J. Quinney College of Law. And after your first year, they do this process where law firms come on campus and interview students, and then select students for their second summer at the school to work full-time at the law firm. It's a kind of paid internship.
Okay.
A friend of mine convinced me to apply. And and when I say convinced me, he really just kind of coached me into it. But again, I just didn't know that was, a viability. And I thought, frankly, it sounded boring to be doing just commercial transactions and that sort of thing. So I applied, and I wrote this really funny cover letter. It turns out that the jobs that those firms were offering were the most lucrative jobs that you could possibly get out of law school. And there was intense competition for it. Typically these jobs go to the top 10, 20% of the class. And I was flirting with those numbers, but not quite there. So I submitted it, and then I started doing these interviews, and I ended up with several callbacks, and I go back downtown, and I start seeing these places, and I start getting exposure to them. And then I remember it vividly. A Friday, I start getting emails and letters back, and I opened the first of these offers from a firm that was in Milwaukee, a national firm, and it says, congratulations. We would love to have you come back as a summer associate. Your salary will be $1,700 a week. And at that moment, I remember it so vividly. I just kind of just dropped everything and fall apart. And what hit me is that salary was twice what my mother was making in 1 year at that moment in Dominican Republic. Wow. So what happened then was that not just my life, but my entire family's life had changed. We are very communal. My salary gets, to this day, shared across several households. And what that was about to do, and I think it's something that I bring up because since then, and since I've been doing this work now for 15 years, we rarely talk about salary. Something happens in our circles where that just isn't a conversation. But for folks like me, it certainly was an important part. And I think, importantly, and relatedly, I think if I think about it a little bit more, it was also a moment where I learned the value of my work, right? For the first time, really, where I was getting some feedback as to here is what all this work is leading up to, in the possibilities that would come from. So, yeah, that's that moment, and I think it was, I've remained in law firm work since then. It's certainly not just because of the compensation that we obtained, but certainly in part of it because of it. And I think often back to that and thinking how horrible would it have been had I not applied and ever discovered that this was an opportunity for me. Because I really enjoy what I do now.
So this teacher, boy.
Yeah.
This
is all back to Mrs. Emery. All right back to her.
Do you remember the first time that you argued a case?
Yes, vividly. Because I had been sent by a senior partner at a regional firm to represent him and our client. And the client came with me. The partner couldn't be there. And I am standing at the podium and I'm arguing my motion. And I say, now, Your Honor, if you turn to page 60, and the judge, Judge Thurman, who's still here, says, now, Mr. Tejeda, I am there and I don't see what you're arguing. And I says, no, Your Honor, page 60. And he says, yep, I'm on page 16 and I can't see it. And he said, no, Your Honor, page 60. And it's my accent at this moment I realized, I'm at this high power firm and I can't communicate this. And my client is sitting there and at this moment I'm having this panic, that I'm sure many young professionals feel, especially when you're the only person who looks like you in this room. And I say, gotta get through this. So I say, Your Honor, no, page 57, 58, 59, 60. He says, oh, page 60. Yes, we go there. So the good thing about all this is that we won the motion. So otherwise I would have been in hot water. But I remember it vividly, and I think I bring that up because, again, we're talking about people who aren't used to, this is all brand new to me, right? And that day, I remember thinking, I can get through all of this because it's kind of, there was always this question about cutting accent. This is advocacy. Is this something that you can really do? I was convinced that I could handle it after that. So
there you go.
I'll never forget it. It's a good moment.
The series is called JESSOP'S Journal, and this is my journal.
Yes.
And yeah, it's got scars and all that stuff. And the folks at Rustico have this little hashtag that I like to ask as the last question for every interview. And so I'll ask you, Engels, how do you want to leave your mark?
I think professionally, what I hope I can do in my work, right, on a day-to-day, is to contribute however small, however little I can, to that story of America, to this place where dreams are possible, where we want you to achieve your potential, to maximize your contribution, and to solve all the conflicts that come along with that diversity in a civil way. I think if I can do that while making a living, I'll be very, very happy at the end of all of this.
Thank you very much for coming on JESSOP'S Journal.
Thank you so much.
And there's a couple other people we want to thank. Of course, we did the hand sanitizing and, adult beverages from the folks at Ogden's Own Distillery. Rustico, of course, is the guys that make my journals. Now, we talked about washing your hands, but totally serious. The folks at Clear, have you ever thought about washing your nose? I'm not kidding. And they also make my mouth spray. Taylor Cooperative tries to do what they can with my custom clothes, and of course we have JW Custom Hats. Here's the thing I want people to remember. Stories have power. They help us understand each other. From the Urban Lounge and with Engels Tejeda, I'm Doug Jessop, ABC4 News.